Hello!
Hello!
And welcome back to the workshop.
In this week's episode, we're going to be finding out if our windscreen frame template has actually worked.
My name is Oliver, and this is my dad, Andrew. He's a wicked engineer and my next door neighbour. We've always wanted to build a car together, so when I found my dream car in nightmare condition, we decided to embrace it, seize the day and re-engineer the entire car from scratch.
Well, it's looking more and more like a car every single day. A K20 A2 from a Honda.
And make your own gear knob kit. There you go.
This might take a while.
Things don't always go to plan. But when they do, it's a thing of beauty. Building a car and making memories with my dad. One of one, this is Project Mosquito. Yep. Well, noodly, but surprisingly resilient. So the first thing we need to do is stabilise it all.
Yeah, the frame itself, as we've added the bonding compound to the thing, has got quite heavy.
The foam is slightly flexy because it's foam, and this plaster of Paris compound is very crumbly. It's very stiff. It's too stiff.
Yeah.
And so it's really strong when it's sat on a table. But if you start like picking it up and moving it about and because obviously this stuff is designed to stick this foam to a wall, and so it's just not designed to be moved. So we need to make it movable, don't we?
Yeah. So I think what we should do is get some wooden battens and just batten the whole thing and coat the whole thing in PVA.
Yeah, I think a really good move would have been to mix our filler with PVA to make it less crumbly and to help it like hold together and give it maybe a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, and bond it together much better, yeah. But we've got some little battens, so basically we're going to put battens all the way around. Obviously this is a learning curve for both of us.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's a learning compound curve.
Yeah. So we're learning as we're going along and enjoying the process. It's nice to do something completely different.
As with anything in engineering or anything, there's a bunch of different ways to do this stuff, and that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah.
And we've been learning. We aren't fabulous experts, are we?
No.
In any stretch of the imagination, right? And I've never made a mold before, and so I know there's a bunch of different ways of doing this, but the way that I wanted to do this is because in a minute we're going to make a big mold for a body, right? We want to mold this, and we've never made a mold before.
No.
So the more mold making experience we can get,
The better, yeah.
and we had a lot of really cool comments in last week's video from a lot of people that are really knowledgeable, and they were really nice to read. So thank you all for your comments.
Yes, thank you.
Like I say, we aren't composites people at all, really. I've done some fiberglassing and I've done some composite wood stuff, but other than that, and a lot of people suggesting using sheet wax or using this windscreen as a mould for a screen. But this is a very expensive windscreen for a very rare car, and is it 800 miles?
It's 800 mile round trip if we break one,
So-
and we can't get one delivered.
Yeah. And so we want to treat it with kid gloves as much as possible and risk it as little as possible. And also we didn't want to use sheet wax because it's expensive. And as previously mentioned, chances of us stuffing this up in some way are higher than average, I'd say. And so, you know, one sheet of sheet wax is about 25 quid for the cheap stuff. And that's not so bad, unless you stuff it up, and then it's 50 quid.
Yeah. And then we've got to wait for it to arrive, because obviously
Yes. Whereas we were making the last video in the winter holidays.
Yeah.
And so everything was shut, we couldn't get anything. And 20 quid's not so bad, but free is even better.
so I think we should do now is just paint the whole lot up.
Yeah. Yeah, up until now we've been using waterproof PVA. This is non-waterproof PVA, so basically the normal stuff that you used to use at school.
No, it's all right. No, that's good. It doesn't.
Come on, get out! Get out of the bottle! Ah! Yeah, waterproof PVA glue is something that we had loads of, that's why we used it. And it did stick. Yeah, it did. I think it would have dried a lot faster if it was the not waterproof variety, which this is. And we know this sticks because I've seen it on model making YouTube for like bases and stuff they often use. This stuff, this foam, and then they'll go over it with like a PVA, and then they'll do like oil washes and stuff on top. That was always one of my favourite things about doing craft stuff at school. You'd afterwards peeling all the glue off your fingers.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we now have a dry and stiffened.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon we were after we coated it all, we took it in our house and basically just made a little superstructure around it just to keep everything just in place.
Yeah, while all the PVA dried, and actually the PVA has done a flipping good job.
Yeah.
So, how good's that?
In fact, I'll take all this off now and we'll refresh it all.
I was very nervous when I did that. It's one of those things that you only want to do once just in case it doesn't work.
Yeah, if we get rid of this now we can put clean on.
Yeah.
And it'll make for a better thing.
Okay.
We kind of shot ourselves in the foot because we're doing this in the worst time of year possible. Because the ideal temperatures for doing fiberglass work is somewhere between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius. And the garage gets regularly, well in here, it never really goes freezing.
But it never really goes kind of below 3 degrees, 4 degrees.
Yeah, but it never gets much above 10 degrees, even with all the heating on.
Because it's not currently centrally heated.
So we could struggle. With a small piece like this, it's okay because we can take it to my house and we can stick it in the one. But when we come to the bigger parts of the car,
we might have to make our plugs like this and then wait.
Yeah.
And then have like fiberglassing week. And lay things up one after another, which actually might not be the worst idea.
Yeah. But in the meantime, obviously, we've still the radiator fit with all the aluminium work to do.
Yeah, we've got the radiator duct to do. We have all sorts.
All the brake lines to fit, and so yeah, we've plenty to do.
Yeah, and so that's the thing with fiberglassing work. It's temperature dependent, but it's also kind of you don't want to do loads and loads and loads and loads, and it be this never-ending task. And it's good to have things you can actually take a break from, and do something else for a change and stuff. And so yeah, we're gonna what's the Fellini thing? Progress spherically.
Yes.
Not just linearly. if you were going to do a whole fiberglass body, you would usually make like a facsimile. You'd make this, but in the car, and just have that be your screen. But like we said at the beginning of this video, we are actually using this as a course on mold making. Because jumping straight in at the deep end is all right, but it can get very expensive very quickly. Because we've been looking at fiberglass stuff.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And it's, it's, if you want to do it really well and use molding, like tooling, resins and stuff like that that don't shrink, then it can get very expensive very quickly. And so if we can do it in little bits and we can learn, and then
learn from our mistakes, and then we can progress in a properly thought out way rather than just diving in and.
Yeah, and then when we get to making our mould, we'll be well versed in mould making, hopefully, having learnt many, many lessons along the way. You're wiggling it. So we're trying polyfiller, or whatever brand of polyfiller this is. Well, I'll tell you what, Dad, it's a good job that we do car stuff and not bake off.
So if we can get all this blended out afterwards, we'll let it go off again, we'll sand it back again, we'll get a really nice finish all the way around. Then we can put aluminium tape on, which will be a barrier between the resin and the foam, because obviously the foam just melts. So we use that as a barrier, and then we can build it up and make our little windscreen piece.
Good morning, everybody. Now, more sanding, then more filling.
Yeah.
And then later, more sanding.
Yeah. So basically what we've done overnight, we've coated the whole frame with basically polyfiller.
Yeah.
Because you've got to remember, this is just like a single use form.
And if you're not familiar with polyfiller, it's a water-based, very lightweight filler for kind of like if you ding your plasterboard or drywall at home or something like that. And I'd just like to give a really big shout out to our Slicksteer Patreon members, Andy Wood, Alex Bottomley and Doug Shott. Thank you, chaps, along with all of our patrons. They help us make these videos that you enjoy watching. And if you'd like to check out our Patreon, then there's a link in the description.
Thank you very much. So it's more about getting the glass fitment now in there, and then we'll sort this top bit out.
Yeah, because these bits are fine, aren't they?
Yeah.
But there's a dip here, and there's a gap there.
Yeah.
But we don't know until you take that back.
I'll take that back and we'll pop the glass back in.
Yeah.
We'll widen it in every direction, and then any low spots we can refill and build back up again.
Yeah. Now, because we're starting bodywork, I just want to talk to you about wheel arches for a minute, because I had a bunch of comments, and I think there's a bit of an optical illusion happens between the car and the camera. It's not as wide as it looks. And the reason for that is that the widest part on a GTM is the doors. The center of the door is the widest part of the car. It's really weird. A GTM is basically shaped like a teardrop. So the front is wide, the middle is the widest, and then the back is the narrowest. So if you look down the side of the car and you look at the center point of the tire here, and then you look from there to the bodywork, it's a long way. And so it looks like a huge arch. But then when you look at the back of the front wheel, it's not. It's a very short distance. And then you look at the front of the back wheel, and it's a really short distance. And then you look at the rear of the back wheel, from the centre to the bodywork is absolutely miles, because a GTM has a bodyline here. And then it has a wheel arch. Now, your bodyline is supposed to be where your wheel arch starts, not anywhere else. And so they've always looked really odd, because even with the wheel arches, the door is still the widest part of the car. And to make matters even more complicated, we haven't just widened the car, we've also lengthened the wheelbase. Because in the process of engineering this thing, we've moved our weight as low and central as possible. So the engine sits further forward than a mini engine would in a GTM. The driver sits a lot lower down than they do in a GTM. The fuel tank is further back than it is in a regular GTM. And the wheels have actually gone out. So in relation to the wheel base, the fuel tank is a lot further back and the engine is a lot further forward. It's not just that, it's also inclined. So the heaviest part of the engine is a lot further forward. Because there's more than makes a car fast than just power to weight ratios. Obviously, chassis rigidity, chassis balance, suspension tuning, the fact that this has proper double wishbone suspension all the way around will add to how fast it is. And the track width is all part of that, because we've given this thing proper slip angles and all the rest of it. In fact, if you compare this thing to one of the mid-engine classic mini kits that you can buy, right? The engine in one of the classic mini kits is a lot further back. It's also a lot higher up, and the driver, well, the roof of a classic mini is about there in comparison to Mosquito. And of course, Mosquito is currently about 2 inches too high ride height wise, because it hasn't got all of its weight in it yet, so we haven't bought new springs. And so the driver of your classic mini is actually kind of sat up here. And they sit very upright, and they sit kind of in the middle of the car. They move the driver back to get decent balance. And your fuel tank is in line with your front wheels, which is why every time you see one of those kind of Honda mid-engine minis, they're always either doing donuts or they're drag racing. They are never going around corners at 125 miles an hour, because they can't. Not well anyway. Right? And our first part of fixing our wheel arches will be to correct the teardrop shape of the body, because this body line is beautiful. It's very Stratos-like, even though the GTM predates the Stratos. And actually, it's a funny thing. Dad and I had a conversation the other day, because Dad asked me where the body line is at the front of the car, because you can't even see it. But there's a body line on a GTM that runs down here. It should run across the doors, but the top of the door is in the wrong place. And then it should run down this edge of the wheel arch. The problem is that this edge of the wheel arch is not the top of the wheel arch. And even in a classic GTM, when it has 13-inch wheels on, or even 10-inch wheels on, this edge is not the center point of your wheel. It's nowhere near. So the first thing that we need to do is correct all of that. We need to move this edge out to the center point of our wheel. We need to move our headlight out along with it, otherwise your car will forever look like a frog. A lot of wide body cars have this problem. Rob Dom's RX-7 has this problem, the 4-rotor. It looks like a frog because you've added a load more mass and your headlights are still kind of where they were. But you want your headlights as far out as you can, because it also gives you a really good beam pattern for when you're driving on country roads. So our headlights need to move out. This edge needs to actually be the center point of our wheel, and our door needs to have our body line incorporated into it, and that body line is this body line here, which is absolutely gorgeous if only you could see it. And the first part of fixing this body as far as the width and wheel arches are concerned, is that we need to make the rest of the width as wide as the door skin. And once we've done that, the wheel arches will actually be smaller than what you'll find on a Sports Pack Mini or a Mini Miglia wheel arched Mini, which is like the most common wheel arch for a 13-inch wheel Mini. And these are 14 by 8-inch wheels. And our overall vehicle width will only be ever so slightly wider than an early 2000s Honda Civic. It really isn't that wide. It just looks it on camera. Somebody the other week, Dad, somebody suggested 1960s Camaro rear lights. Camaro tail lights for the back of the car, right? This car is so narrow that it actually, if you put Camaro tail lights on, they'd touch in the middle. No, because of the odd proportions of the car, that was what made me realise just the optical illusion that happens with this car being kind of curved on the sides. And the wheel arches actually don't need to be that big. I know there are a lot of minis out there. There are V8 minis. There's you know, four-wheel drive minis. There's like Cosworth powered minis, all sorts that have some really big wheels and some really big tires. And we don't need arches anything like that. I know a lot of classic minis with big wheel arches tend to like French bulldogs. They kind of like that, where you've got this little tiny body and then all this extra mass. It won't be like that at all. I want to take everything that's good about this car, get rid of everything that's bad about the car, while incorporating everything in it that we can to make it as good as possible. So better aerodynamics, better turning circle. Like GTMs don't have a turning circle like that. They have an in fact, all mid-engine minis. The Smoking Tyre, Matt Farah and Zach Clapman did a really good video in a V6 supercharged Honda powered Mini that was on a Netflix show, I believe. And they absolutely love the car, but then they go to turn it round and it has a turning circle like a bus. This will not be the case with Mosquito. And so everything has to work with everything else. And yeah, the wheel arches won't even be as wide as that V6 Mini. Now, it's a funny thing is the bodywork, because people don't do this ever. They either build a wide body or like a wide body kit, or they put wheel arches on, don't they?
Yeah.
And when I explained what I wanted to do with the car to Dad, it took you a while to
yeah, because basically what we, rather than just widening an existing GTM, you're kind of making it not body kitty.
No.
It becomes the body is the body itself without adding a body kit to it.
Yeah, it's an evolution of the original GTM styling, not a modification of the original GTM styling, and there is a massive difference there. But it's obviously there's a reason why people don't do it.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to add something to an existing body than it is to reprofile the body completely.
Yeah. Do you want to settle this side in first?
Yep. You get your hand underneath. Put your hand under. Oh, I've got it.
I can't get it. It's really difficult, is this? Because eventually we want the screen to obviously sit flush with the surround, but it has to have the windscreen glue in it. And then we've got to leave enough room.
Yeah, for sealant.
For fiberglass first,
yep.
Right, and make it a little bit oversized so there's room for fiberglass, but not make it too oversized that when we put sealant in, it's not flush.
Yeah, because we want this to basically carry on
perfectly flush with the body.
Perfectly flush and carry on across the roof. You know, go up and then round across the roof.
Yeah.
So,
and of course we can always snug it up. We can always bodywork it and tighten it up after, can't we?
yeah. But we need enough thickness to be able to do that.
Yeah. You can always make it smaller, but you can't make it bigger.
Yeah.
Once it's a thing.
It's kind of older stuff anyway. It's not as sticky as it should be.
Morning.
Yeah, we're getting down to the final sand now. Oliver put some filler on this last night. We took it in our house, and it's dried off really well. So this morning,
it's been, yeah.
So hopefully this can be our third and final sand.
Something we have done wrong in this episode that we will have to learn for next time is we've talked about the fact that we should have used the filler with the PVA glue originally, but then to try and make up for that, we painted on top of the plaster of Paris with the PVA glue, didn't we?
And we should have flatted it all down smooth like this first and then painted it.
Yeah, we should have, it's fine here, but on our main surface that we want to make our plug with, we should have taken the plaster of Paris back with light sandpaper first and then PVA'd it, because this stuff's incredibly tough, but the foam's very soft. So when we came to have to remove the PVA and the plaster of Paris, you've got this super tough layer of PVA and plaster of Paris, then a soft crumbly layer underneath, and then super soft foam. And so in getting it off has caused a lot more sanding and filling than we wanted to really do.
But it's a learning curve that we've now overcome.
Have we got a little ditch there?
So we're getting there. Slowly.
But that's something we'll have to learn for next time. And if you're doing this at home, don't do that.
Don't know what we did.
No. Do you want me to smooth the roof off this?
No, I'll do it all in one. Because if you're working at that side,
it jiggles
it jiggles it about, and you end up digging in and also so it does.
It's really frustrating for me.
Yeah, because you don't literally, you've got to do it on your own. Two people can't work on it at the same time. Because this stuff's so soft.
Yeah. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to fiberglass, as previously stated, but we want to use tooling resin for this mould and for all of the moulds, don't we?
Yep.
Because normal fiberglass can shrink a little bit. And because we're making a mould of a mould, obviously I mentioned before, when you make a mould of a mould, things get smaller. And normal fiberglass can shrink a little bit when it dries. And we're concerned that a little bit of shrinkage and then a little bit more shrinkage.
Yeah, because the last thing we want to do when we spent all this time making this is to actually get it in the car and the windscreen not fit.
Yeah. And so they don't want it to be too small. And the price difference between like good quality fiberglass resin and tooling resin, which doesn't shrink, is not significant enough that it's not worth paying, in my opinion. If you have experience with the tooling resin, then let us know in the comments. Like what we do, it might be unnecessary. It might be unnecessary peace of mind. But when you've put this many hours into something, you know, you want to give it the best chance you can, don't you? So we'll have to order it, because it's like I say, it's not your average like canoe repair kit that's from your local hardware store. Not that we have a local hardware store. So what we're going to do now is tape it up. We've got aluminium tape for our main surfaces, but for our not main surfaces, we're going to use parcel tape, because we just don't want any resin getting in cracks and crevices that haven't been PVA'd. The PVA should be resin resistant, but the last thing we want is one little bit of resin dripping round and down and getting in a crack or a crevice and
melting the polystyrene.
Melting our mould as it's kind of being formed, or melting the plug. Can't peel it. My fingers are too fat. It's so flippin' fiddly. No.
Oh, I need a chair. We really must get a
taller table.
taller work table. Designed for Lilliputians, this one.
It was a tiny little French folk, so was my mum. But the thing is, even my mum likes stuff higher.
Yeah.
But is that because she's used to us, or is that...
I don't know.
My mum's tiny, bless her.
Yeah, she's only 5 foot tall.
5 foot and 5/8 of an inch, because if you don't include that, we'll get shouted at.
Yeah. And yet we've measured her and she's not, you forget the 5/8.
You're going to get it when she sees this.
She's only little, but she's cute.
But my advice to you, if at all possible, if you're going to do this at home, is don't have somebody wiggling it while you're trying to stick it down.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, so when you're watching this, it'll be my birthday. And I'll be in here filming, probably. Which is nice, because there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Well, I don't know. A bit of beach in Tahiti. But barring a beach in Tahiti. This is pretty good. Needs to come this way.
There you go.
Windscreen frame of the future.
That's worked out really well. I was a bit dubious when we first started sticking barbecue skewers into lumps of foam, but it sits. No.
That being said, right, I'm really proud of my construction method. It was a really good idea. However, there are things that I would do very differently next time. I would, not that I'll be making another windscreen frame, but if I do that same method again, the skewers and glue work perfectly. The filler, not at all. Terrible idea. The filler would be mixed with PVA glue if I did it again. The biggest problem though is that it's all very soft.
Yeah.
You can't get a perfect finish on it easily, so I would make it a little bit oversized, and then I would cover it in the filler first with the PVA glue in it, and then I think after that you'd be able to put body filler on and bodywork it properly. Yeah. Because as it stands, we made it as tight as we could, and it's ended up very easy to dint. Like you pick it up like with your hands, and it's easy to dint with your thumbs. Construction-wise, it's strong enough, especially with the wood in it. But it like we ended up kind of filling some damage that we did just by moving it around, which again, wrong time of year to do this, really. Nothing goes off. We've been carrying it into my mum and dad's house every night.
If it was like between, let's say, the recommended temperature for like fiberglass is between 18 and 25 degrees.
Yes.
And it barely gets above freezing in here.
Yeah, it gets to about 4 degrees Celsius. But the thing is, the polyfiller wouldn't even go off unless you took it in there. So you don't ideally want to be moving it. None of it's ideal. However, that being said, I'm proud of the construction method and I'm proud of what we've made. Yeah. It's our first mould thing that we've ever made.
It's the first GTM in the world that's going to get a bonded in windscreen.
Yes.
That I'm aware of.
There's somebody else said they were going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've done it.
Right.
That's the problem with people on the internet and cars and stuff. But yes, it's the first publicly made bonded windscreen GTM, I think. I think the bonded windscreen will make as big a difference aerodynamically as the arches will.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously putting a wide body in your car does make your aerodynamics worse, but bonding in your windscreen makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it allows the air to go straight over the roof, yeah.
But it also decreases like cabin noise and stuff like that. And it'll be a performance benefit. At low speed, it'll help fuel economy and all that. And at high speed, it'll help kind of motorway cruising and performance. And it's for free at the end of the day, because there's no downside other than a load of work. and all it's, you know, and it hasn't cost us that much other than the aluminium tape. I mean, fiberglass is never cheap, but I'm proud. I'm proud of what we've achieved. I am. And I can't wait to lay it up. Unfortunately, our fiberglass has not arrived. And we've only just ordered it because not knowing loads about fiberglass, we've had to do a load of research first
to find out which were best.
And so we've ordered special tool and fiberglass and all that. So that should be here soon.
Shortly. Yeah.
But we might wait. We might do other jobs.
Yeah, I think we'll be better off because the weather here is so cold at the moment. We're better off preparing everything else, trying to get the shape of everything in before we start rushing to do fiberglass.
In a few weeks, it'll be warm enough. Because the good thing about the weather that we have here in central France is it gets cold, but it doesn't get cold for long. That's the nice thing. It gets miserable and it gets cold and it gets wet, but then it gets nice.
Yeah.
And so once it gets nice, we'll be able to glass this thing up and get that in there, and then we'll be able to get on the bodywork proper. Because we've got roofs and stuff to do.
Yeah, there's a roof to do, there's arches, there's loads of stuff.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about all of it.
So you'll be able to see the shape of the car coming together, even though it will only be a plug for a mould.
Yes, but some weeks we'll be doing things like running brake lines, and other weeks we'll be doing stuff like fiberglassing. It's just going to be the nature of the beast for a while. But yeah, real happy.
Yep.
And it's only taken us 2 videos.
Hey!
So thank you all for watching, and a huge thank you to our Patreon members, because they really help us to make videos like this.
And if it's your first video here, don't forget to click like and subscribe.
Yes, thank you very much. Please be awesome to each other, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.